right now, because for two reasons. I'm going to introduce you to one of my old, I don't want to say old, but one of my Army friends when I first joined the National Guard. Bill Old, the guy who's going to be doing this, was part of I Troop 3rd 107. And I'm sitting here reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this guy. So Bill Auld has done theater for a very long time and still enjoys it. He graduated high school about a half an hour away from here at Cuyahoga Falls, and from that day to this one, he has led an unusual life. He became an aerial rigger, college professor, and theatrical technician. He has traveled the world flying people on wires for a living, with live events, theater, stage, circus, and even film. Along the way, he has earned a few college degrees and was a professor of theater at Kent State University, Tuscarawas opening, and being in charge of the theater program on that campus. He now has his own company, Alt Entertainment, and is the general manager of Flying by Troy, a company he owns with his longtime friend, which is dedicated to performing flying effects and scenic effects. He has been part of countless productions, has lived all over the U.S., and worked in almost every state. And internationally, he has worked in or toured through dozens of countries, including Canada, Mexico, the UK, France, Haiti, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Dubai, and Norway, as well as working at more exotic places like Cleveland, Canton, and Erie, PA, and now Barber. He has toured Asia for a few years with the production of Peter Pan. He's also been an invited guest of the royal family of Malaysia at their national theater there in Kuala Lumpur. I don't know if I said that right. Prior to all the production work, however, he spent several happy years of his life jumping out of perfectly good airplanes with the United States Army Airborne Corps. He is joined today by his partner, Skylar Maud. Skylar also graduated from high school near here at Canton Valley, before deciding to branch out and also live a life less ordinary. She is an artist, painter, scenic artist for theater, one-time performer, and now a Pendus flying director. For the last 3 years, she has worked for Alt Entertainment and now Flying by Troy as production assistant and rigger. She's currently earned her college degree in technical theater at the University of Mount Union and has attended both Kent State University and Ohio State University prior to that. Recently, some of their big work includes putting up the Big Apple Circus in Lincoln Center, New York City over Christmas, heading to finish an installation on the island of Guam next week, and most importantly, they managed to put on a sister theater at the school yesterday that was used to fly some performers involved with Mary Poppins. Please welcome Bill Auld and Skylar Maud.
Hey everybody. Let's try one more time. Hi everybody. There you go. My name's Bill. This is Sky.
I'm Sky.
As you heard from that, I kind of have an unusual occupation. I graduated a bit from here. I graduated from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and I decided to run off and join the circus. I actually decided to live a life a little less ordinary. And from that time to this, I've gotten a little bit of opportunities like this to talk to people, and this is kind of the fun part, right? Where we get to sort of turn the lights on and show you guys what we get to do for a living. How many? You're mostly freshmen, right? Do we have sophomores? Show of hands. Any? Just freshmen. Awesome. So this is kind of the good crowd to hear this, right? The seniors, they've already figured this one out, or we're already going to write them off. They're already graduating. But you guys are the ones that are just starting into this. And high school is a really good training ground for you guys for what is the real world. And what you're going to get is a lot of guidance and a lot of advice and a lot of words of wisdom that are going to try and steer you in a path. And I want to sort of add to that chorus of voices, and Skylar is going to do the same thing today. Here's what I have in terms of advice. Here's what I have in terms of advice for you, which is, as you head into the world that they are preparing you for, I can tell you two things about it. The world that we live in today is addicted to technology. We just are. How many of you right now don't have a phone. Right? That's less than half. If you poll your parents, way less than that. How many of you today have not looked at a TV screen? A TV, a phone, a monitor. I think we have one in the room. The world you are going into is addicted to technology. And because of that, the world you are going into is a skills-based environment. If you have a skill, you can have a job. Here's the fun part about it. Doesn't matter what that skill is. Does not matter what that skill is. What it matters is that you have it. So here's my advice if you put it all together. When you put it all together, you should go where your passion takes you. And you should get good at where your passion takes you. Don't worry about the logic of it. And I'll give you a good example of the logic of it. The best logic for going where your passion takes you and making a life is standing next to me on stage. And her best example is standing slightly to her left. When I graduated high school and ran away and joined the military. And when I got out of the military, I liked action movies, and so I decided I should run away and become the next Jackie Chan. There were a few impediments to that. I'm not Jackie Chan. That was one of the first big ones. Was living in Ohio and didn't really know much about getting into the film industry. Had no idea in terms of martial arts or acrobatics, but I knew that wire work and engineering was a part of it, and so I started to pursue that. I ended up running away and joining the circus, and when I was in college, I got a lot of advice. They said, don't do that, it doesn't make sense. Go with what makes sense. Don't go with what you're passionate about. And then I graduated, I went out in the world, and I discovered a little thing. Here's a couple of facts for you, because we're going to be throwing out a lot of facts and numbers today, because this is about engineering, first and foremost. A couple of numbers for you. People who graduate college, they've done a couple of surveys, they've done a couple of studies about this. People who graduate college, about 5 years out, there is a big drop-off of people who have graduated college and are not using their degree. They're employed, but whatever they're employed in is not what their degree was in. So if you're going into education, you say, I'm going to go into education, you're not working in education. If you say, I'm going to go into law enforcement, you're not working in law enforcement. And it keeps dropping out to about 10 years out. And about 10 years out, 2 out of 3 people are not employed in whatever they studied in school. And for a lot of you, that kind of seems like I have a bit of a downer on getting a degree or studying in school, which is sort of an odd thing to be saying to an assembly of people who are in school right now. But I don't. And here's why. Because those people invariably get routed into what their passion is. And they've done a little bit more surveys, and they've found out that the single largest indicator to how much money you will make in the course of your life, how happy you rate your life, how happy you rate the place you live, how happy you rate your work, your job satisfaction, single largest indicator on that is whether you have pursued education or not. Here's the weird thing that it kind of all comes together. Nobody can really figure this out. It doesn't matter what you get, it matters that you get. Go into what is your passion, study it, get good at it. You will have a job and you will have a very successful life. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody other than you, right? My passion turned out to be circus. I ran away and joined the circus, and I've flown people on wires for it.
My passion is not talking in front of crowds of freshmen in high school, but here I am. Considering that I am a college student and I am of the age of a college student, I don't know my passion yet. This is pretty fun. I don't know if that's what I'm going to do forever, but that's okay. And you don't need to know what your passion is, even when you're in college and you're studying something. You don't need to know yet. You'll figure it out and you'll get there. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I actually love doing this. I thought I was gonna hate it because I'm bad at math and I don't know what tools are and I don't know how to use a drill. And today I still don't know how to use a drill, but I can do that. So, so that's, I don't know, this is kind of becoming one of my passions. And yeah, I started out as performance, as most people in theater do, because everybody wants to just shine on stage, right? And then that didn't work out for me. I mean, it might still, but I don't know, I've kind of learned to step back and watch it happen for other people, and I like to be the person to make the magic happen for them. So I think it's pretty cool to rig something up and watch people fly on it. But I'm also a scenic artist. I like to paint things. I paint big things pretty fast. It's my job. I get paid to do that. And yeah, that's what I do with my passions. I seem really boring right now. I promise I'm not.
So, that's my little message I want to throw out to you guys. I want to sort of put that bug in your head right now. And as you get all this sort of stuff over the next couple of years, people talk to you about going into college, going into a trade, going somewhere. It's fine. Your decisions are fine, as long as they make sense to you. They don't have to make sense to the rest of the world. Let's talk about what I did and what Sky did, which doesn't make sense to a lot of the rest of the world. Right? It was a somewhat odd experience when you go in and you tell people, this is what I do for a living in casual conversation. So, what you can't see hanging above our set, and the reason why we keep pointing over there, some of you kind of on this part, you guys over here, you're kind of in the cheap seats today, I'm sorry. These guys will probably get a little bit of a better shot into the wings. We have put in a tracked flying system. What that is we have suspended about 60 foot of steel track and ran it all the way up to the ceiling, about 45, 50 feet in the air. From that, we have put on a series of pulleys, trolleys, ropes, cables, in which we can pick somebody up off stage in the wings right here, take them higher than you can view, travel them all the way across in the dead space that is the fly tower of the theater, and land them over there in the wings without anybody ever seeing them. And if we were so inclined, we could probably do that in full view of everyone as well. Which is what we do for Mary Poppins. In order to do that, you have to sort of occupy a really weird niche. Some people are very right-brained. And I'm of the brain that I can never keep it track, which is which, right? Some people are very empirical. They like math, they like straight lines, they like easy answers. When you say 2 + 2 = 4, it's 4, and that's a good thing. And some people are very left-brained. They're very intuitive, they're very artistic. They like to feel and they like to think, and they say 2 + 2 is 4, but that's very boring. Let's do something that's exciting. We live right down the middle, because I am in the science of engineering art. I can fly Mary Poppins. And if I literally picked up Mary Poppins, I'm guessing everybody's familiar with the story. If I picked up Mary Poppins and I sort of flew her across the stage and I set her down like a crane moving a dolly at a factory, it would not be exciting. We want to add a little bit of storytelling to this. We always want to add the human element back into it. So how do we do that? Well, unfortunately, since our stuff is way up at the ceiling, we're going to have to sort of put on a little bit here in front of you. And in order to do that, I'm going to need a couple of people who fly for us. Can I get, Nick, can you come on up on stage? This is Nick. We don't have your microphone. We don't have your microphone, so you're going to have to project for everybody. You are... Tell everybody what you do with Mary Poppins. Oh, there it is. Excellent. Lovely. Thanks, Tom. You can.
So,
Is it on? Let's check.
okay. I play Bert in Mary Poppins, who, if you've seen the movie, he's the chimney sweep. And in one of the scenes towards the end of the show, we have a break where I do a couple of cool physics and gravity defying stunts. So that's when these guys come in and kind of help me out.
Absolutely. While we talk about the system, it's great to just try and heave people up in the air, but they actually need a bit of a harness to fly around in, which is what Skylar is holding. So why don't we do this? I'll take your microphone. Why don't you guys head into the wings? You can get harnessed up, and then...
It's a little bit embarrassing for me to do this in front of everybody, so...
Well, they get harnessed up. We'll talk a little bit about the system we put in. In order to make something happen on stage, there is usually a host of technicians off in the wings. This is one of our technicians, one of our lift operators. Let's talk about getting someone up in the air. Flying people is great, except they're people. And at some point, you have to realize, just up in front of my line, at some point you have to realize we need to get a human body lifting them up in the air. And they weigh a lot, and we have to get them off the system, and they have to go home and sleep at night and do things like eat. So we have to make it easy on ourselves to lift someone. That is one of our first things of safety we need to be aware of. Once again, we're taking science back to the human factor, back to the art, back to the human interface that drives us all. So, over here, we have a little thing called mechanical advantage on our side. Most of you are familiar with mechanical advantage if you've ever taken physics. This is making a machine that actually gives us work. We enter in a little force into the system multiplies that out, and we have a better outcome out here. Now, for this, we have rigged up, because we want to keep it somewhat manageable. And we're also vying between two things. I need to make it easy, but I need to make it reactive. The more work that machine has to do, the more friction I put into it, the more spinning pulleys and moving parts, the less reactive it gets. The most reactive, 1-to-1. I hit a rope, something happens. If you want a good example of that, look at a guitar string. I hit a guitar string, something immediately happens. We send physics out into the world. There we go. What I want to do is dial it down so that it is somewhat challenging for the operator, but not too challenging that it's stressful and we worry about dropping people. So we put in a 4-to-1 system over here. Now I'm going to point to this and try and stay on stage as much as possible, and I'll have our assistants, I'll have my lovely assistant Tyler here do this. Sky, can you get on the travel line for me, please?
Yes.
Can you just lift this so it's just hovering right off the ground for me? And we'll take it right out to center stage. I got this. No, it's okay. Just try this guy out to center stage, please. We'll move it out here so everybody can see. Awesome. 4 ropes, it is a 4-to-1 system, and it's rigged in the mirror image. So if I grab either outside rope and I pull down, I am moving 4 times the amount of force. If I put 10 pounds into that system, I'm lifting 40. Or, if I have to lift 120 pounds, divide that by 4, and I only have to lift
30.
There we go. We got 1. That's still awake. You're gonna lift a little 30. I've made it easy on myself. I don't have to lift the weight of a whole human being. I just have to lift a percentage of it. But here's my problem. Isaac Newton has told us that force just can't be created. It just doesn't exist, right? He's got 3 laws. An object in motion stays in motion until we're acted upon by something else. And an object at rest just can't be stopped. So let's take a look at those first 2. I can't just create force. So if I am getting it easy, what's my trade-off? What do I lose to gain force? I lose speed. I lose distance.
Sorry, Philip Sanchez, you needed in the main office. Philip Sanchez to the main office. All right, now, what is he losing? What did he say?
Speed. Speed and distance. So what we're going to have, you can see the bottom of this bag is right about the bottom of the ground. And we're going to have Tyler reach up on the rope as high as he possibly can and take his knuckles and put them right to the ground. And that distance from where my hand reaches all the way to the floor is about 8 foot. He's about a 6 foot tall guy. That's about 2 feet of reach. Most people are about that. He has just done that, and the bag is now 2 feet off the ground. That makes sense. Go ahead and lower it back in, please. Thank you. He has an easier time of it, but this moves slower. We're sacrificing distance for ease. So, if we need to move a little bit faster, he can grab either of the inside lines. There you go. It's now traveled about 4 feet. If I've grabbed either of the inside lines, what I've done is I've cut my mechanical advantage in half. I've gone from 4 to 1 to 2 to 1. And a 2 to 1 mechanical advantage means I'm only lifting half the weight of my very heavy sandbag here. 3 times. I'm only lifting half the weight of it, but it's going half the distance. Let's say we need to get all the distance. If he just grabs all the ropes, reaches up as high as he can, please. Here we go. So if you ever need a lesson in terms of practical application of physics, there it is. It's a very simple machine that we've put into this little system. Thank you. What happens if I now have to move somebody very fast? 1 to 1. Can't use any of that ropes and pulley stuff, that voodoo magic of physics. What I need to do is just grab a lot of ropes and pull them up in the air. And that person just weighs a little bit more than I am comfortable lifting with my hands. I can't do a curl of 150 or 200 pounds. What do? What was our lesson here at the beginning? We're always trying to work it back to what? The human element. We're in theater, and theater is nothing if not collaborative. You want to know the solution? Can you figure it out? Let's put another body on the line. If Tyler grabs 2 ropes on one side, and Skylar grabs 2 ropes, I love how you guys have the matching twinsy ropes, 2 ropes on the other, they're both holding half of the system. Half the system means half the force they need to generate. I don't need to generate as much as his whole body weight. Each one of them is sharing his body weight between them. But if they both grab it and pull it all the way down to the deck, he goes off the ground quite nicely. Thank you. Back in again. So we have a little bit of weight. It's actually called the Hong Kong method. Hong Kong method of flying people. If you need more force, just throw more hands on the line. If anybody gets, there used to be a thing called DVDs. Ask your mom and dad about it. But if you ever can find the backstage sort of commentary, there was a movie called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There was a scene in there where they were hopping through the top of a forest, bamboo forest, massive stuff, and they had giant cranes holding them up. And they were hopping them through. And they needed to hop these people hundreds of feet on a time. And they actually show you in the backstage footage what it looks like. And what it looks like is there's a tug-of-war line of about 100 people on this rope. And there was a guy at the front with a bullhorn who just yelled, "Go!" And they all just pulled as hard as they possibly could. And not surprisingly, 100 people pulling could lift a little 110-pound performer and shoot him through the trees. All right, so we've solved the problem of how we get somebody up in the air. Now we have to solve the problem of how we get them back and forth. Skylar, you want to... if you want to step out and narrate, I'll be the action and you can be the narration when we switch.
Okay. All right, so we figured out how to get them up and down, now how to get them back and forth. There are 2 ropes over there. It's actually not 2 ropes, it's like just 2 lines, and you can pull them. If you pull the rope on this side, it's going to go that way. If you pull the rope on this side, it'll come this way. It's pretty easy, and we made it that way on purpose because you don't want to be doing this weird, like, backwards flippy thing in your brain. You got to think about, like, if I turn it this way, which way is it going to go? Because people are in the air, and if you do the wrong thing, they're going to get hurt. So it's pretty important to know which way you're going to be traveling them. So yeah, we made it pretty easy. You're lifting 100% of the weight, pretty much, but if the lift operator is doing their job, you're not actually lifting any weight, you're just pulling them. And it's a 1-for-1, so you move the rope 1 foot, the person, or in this case, bag, is going to move 1 foot. So, go ahead, do your thing, give them a little swing.
And we're going to bring it right back.
I know, it's pretty impressive, right? So, what you don't see is there's a trolley right above this little bag right here. and we're going to do a little bit of a pendulum thing here.
Yeah.
So, if the trolley is right above this bag, that means the bag is going to be right here doing nothing. If I hold this, and he moves the trolley over here, we're going to do a little pendulum. So what's going to happen when I let go of this if the trolley is right there? Yep, it's going to move directly. However many feet this is to that trolley, it's going to move the exact same way the other side. So here we go. I know, it's really exciting. And then if you put the trolley right back over the bag, it'll stop moving. If you'll do cancel for me.
Cancel it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to cancel something that's tiny and doesn't weigh anything, but he did a really good job. So that's it. That's it for the travel. They don't lift much.
We have a 1-to-1 on travel. We have a 1, 2, or 4-to-1 on the lift. Now we need to worry about putting a little artistry into this. Let's get a performer on the line, shall we? Go ahead and open them up for me, please.
We're going to do exciting stuff now, don't worry.
Yesterday, we put this stuff in and we spent a little bit of time rehearsing with everyone. I should stay in front of the proscenium. We did a little bit of rehearsing, and in doing a little bit of rehearsing, the crew discovered a little bit about flying, and we're going to pass this on to you. In order to do that, though, I want to bring up a couple of people on stage, because they're now resident experts. I appreciate it, but they had time yesterday in the saddle. So can we get you two ladies up on stage for me, please? Why don't you take a second, introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm Katie.
Get that on in a second.
Yeah.
Can you pull the slack out?
I'm Haley Sueno. I play Mary Poppins in the show.
And I'm Carly Rollins, and I play Miss Andrews, which is also the holy terror of the musical.
Yeah, so we both have different parts that we both have a similar rig on. You'll see Chris, though, is able to do a lot of cool tricks. We don't really do any tricks besides the height, of course, and then flying off and on the sides of the stages. That's my next kind of demonstration for you today. He does a lot of cool tricks in the show. I was personally really nervous before we started actually learning how to fly. I go the highest, really, where you can only see Mary Poppins' feet. So that was really exciting, though, but I also learned how erect you have to keep your body, and it's not just the harness that's in charge of keeping you up. You really have to use the human element, really.
One of the things we always say is that the relationship between the flyer and the technician is more like dance partners than it is just somebody pushing a button or somebody pulling a line. These two have to work together to sell the gag, right? To sell the effect we want. Mary Poppins, very British, very prim, very proper. She's a fly upright. Excellent. The Holy Terror, as you would guess from her name, not quite so prim and proper. We need to whip her around the stage a bit more. So we have one that is basically height, one that is basically speed, and one that is basically precision. So if you look at these characters, that's basically what they fly. Do you have anything you want to add in?
No, I just really enjoy this, and you'll see, it's really awesome.
What,
Come see the show.
you want to add in what you learned from flying yesterday?
Oh, I just kind of learned that you need to trust the person that's supposed to catch you off stage, because I get caught off stage. And if they miss, I'm definitely going to run into something. I don't really want to do that. So I just really have to trust Tyler.
For sure. If they let go, you're flying to the ground.
As we always say, in a manual system like this stuff has been around for about 5,000 years thereabouts. The same technology they used to create the pyramids is a version of what we're doing here today. Slightly better engineering materials, but still ropes and cables lifting heavy objects, ropes and cables lifting heavy objects, or slightly less heavy objects. It's been around for a while, and as we always say, for this, a manual system, the two things that are holding you off the ground is his body weight and his desire to hold you off the ground. So all the performers have to keep their operators fat and happy. All right, let's get you up in the air for a second. If you want to get over and get on travel for me, please. Thank you. If you can take him about that high off the ground. Right now, Nick's head is up and his feet are down, and this is where Nick gets to demonstrate just how much he paid attention in rehearsal yesterday. I think you got it. All right, his head is up and his feet are down simply because the distance between the pivot point and his feet here and the pivot point and his feet here are different. This lever is longer than this lever. The longer lever, the greater the force. Archimedes, right? Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand and I can move the world. In this case, we're just going to move a high school student a couple of feet. So if he wants to somersault or flip, in this case, just try and lay flat for me, to lay forward. All he's got to do is make his top half longer and his bottom half shorter. And he does that by bending his knees a little bit in. You know what? Go ahead and bring him in for a landing. I think we need to put a swivel on this line so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
We're going to add one more dimension of movement. We can go up and down, we can go back and forth, but what we can't do right now is actually have him rotate because these cables are fixed. So we're going to add a little attachment to the line. Can you take this out, please? I'll take that one. You take that one. Awesome. If you can get back on the travel form, please. Let's take him up. Can you lift him about that high off the ground for me? See, one of the things we can do now, are you ready? One of the things we can do now is just spin him around a little bit. We've added another access to it, and because of that, we can keep him a little bit better as a diagram. Remember how I said you gotta have trust in the people that are your operators? That's a good example. All right, Nick, one more time. Can you do me a favor? Lay flat and show them what we're talking about when it comes time. There you go, you got it. If you were to just drop your arms to your side and put your feet straight, you come right back up again. Simple lever. It's not about throwing yourself forward. And if you do a simple lever, once you reach your arms through the cables, you do a backflip. A backflip is not about anybody who does diving or gymnastics or tumbling, cheer. You have to impart force into the system. You have to motivate this. Here, he has nothing to push against. There's no way to impart force in the system on his part. So he's got to do it with a little bit of levers. Let's do a backflip for him. Now, here's your challenge. Can you do that a little bit slower? What you're going to watch, let me talk through. What you're going to watch is you're going to take your knees and try and touch your nose with it. And what you're doing is essentially, when he bends his knees, this lever gets shorter, which means he's now top heavy. And he's just going to go back around. And at the top of it, if you just extend your legs, that means you now have a top lever, and you spin back around. So the world can see, there you go. Ta-da! In for landing, please. Simple physics, right? Yeah, absolutely. We're going to add in one other thing now. Now we're going to start to work on a little bit of choreography. Now we've got to start to build a little bit of this. We have to build a little bit of this because we have to tell a story. And he's going to move back and forth on stage. So, remember Skylar talking about pendulum physics. The angle of incidence equals the angle of refraction. The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. Does that sound familiar to everybody? It's the exact same thing. Sky, if you can just hold the trolley at center, if you can walk with me. Right there, give him a little bit of slack if you would. Awesome, thank you. That is where his trolley is. And if you imagine a diagonal line about the size of 1/32 inch of cable, if you imagine a line that goes straight down to him, I can tell you exactly where he's going to swing to if we were to pick him up right now. Because we're not just in 2 dimensions, we're in 3. So we need to imagine this as a giant cone that goes all the way up. And the point of that cone touches the ceiling and it comes down. So if he were to walk in a circle all the way around, anywhere on that circle, he would create that cone. solids of revolution. So, if I were to pick him up on his first swing, before inertia kicks in, before wind resistance kicks in, before the Earth's rotation kicks in, if we were to hold him up in the air long enough, what I guarantee he's going to do is travel right over top of this center position, and he is going to go the same distance. The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. The angle of incidence is what it takes the incident of him coming to center, and he is going to reflect the exact same amount. And if we did this right now, I could count out how many steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right at about 6 steps. And if I count over 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, I will bet he swings right to here. But it's no fun if we just do that without a little bit of stakes. So let's put a little bit of stakes in it. Can I have you come up on stage for me? Yeah, come up on stage. Leave your phone. We don't want to record this in case it all goes wrong. Come on. What do we count? 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you stand with your feet right here for me, please? But we're going to turn and face him. You're going to turn right there, turn and face in. If we were to pick Nick up right now and swing him forward, he should stop right about here and never make contact. Are you ready for this? Just a nice, gentle swing. Hold the, hold, one sec. Can you hold the travel line for me, please, Scott? Yep, hold it together. Awesome. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And back in again, please. It's mathematical sound. It's a given. It's fixed. We don't have to worry about that. But it does give us a little bit of work we can do, because let's tell a story with that. That moment is fun. That moment is just physics. But that was my example at the very beginning, where I said if we just picked him up and moved him and set him down, that wouldn't be very exciting. It's not very dynamic. Let's take a step with me. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there. And let's go out here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to need you to stand right here, but here. Hold your hand out. Let's tell a little bit of a story. Let's create a little bit of a moment. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up Nick. We're going to swing him forward, and at the end of the swing, we're going to set him down. But let's give him a reason as to why he needs to fly forward and swing. This is high school. How about a pretty girl? So we're going to pick him up. You are going to swing forward, and right when you land, you're going to take her hand. You understand what we're doing, Tyler? You understand what we're doing, Nick? You guys understand what we're doing? Your job, stand here and look pretty. Is everybody ready? Let's give it a try. Hold the rope for me, please. Whenever you want. Isn't it always the way? Just so close. Thank you, man. Please. You can see we can start to walk this physics into telling a story. That's what we want to do. Back to center. So we have a little bit of time. I don't want to do 2 more gags, so to speak, 2 more things that we can start to do as we put this all together. One of the things is a little bit of lift and travel. So we're going to work in a little bit of a cue, something that we've been working on. Let's do we'll start you at the center. We're just going to pick him up, do a nice diagonal to this side of the stage, all the way across the far side of the stage, and we'll land him over here. So he's going to do sort of the Peter Pan pattern that we were talking about. You understand what we're doing? You ready to fly? Let's make it look good. Ready? Go for it. And bring him back. And head him back to the far side of the stage. We'll land him back at you guys. Simple as that. We can put those together. Do you want to head to the center? Can you travel in the center, please? In case you guys think he's some sort of genius for mathematical reasoning, we have a spike mark on the floor right here for where center. Science is fun, but let's be honest, we got to keep the human element honest on that one too. One thing we can do is for nice, gentle flights like that, Mary Poppins, for instance, or someone who needs to fly gracefully across the stage. Easy enough to do. Why don't you put the cables in front of you for this one? We're going to fly you a little bit more quick, a little bit more speed. You want to try it or should I? I'll do speed. Let me do speed. This is the fun one. All right, I'm going to get over here and do speed because I get to finally do fun stuff. What happens if we need to put a little bit more speed into it? Go ahead and give him a lift up. Ready, Nick? Here we go. Coming to this side, we'll stop you at center. Thank you. So we now can start to tell a story. And what's the story we're going to tell? It's whatever the director wants. In Mary Poppins, we have a couple of scenes we're going to add in. I'm not going to show you what we do in Mary Poppins because you're going to have to buy your ticket for that one. But I've done this before. So at this point, we're going to try one more thing to show you a little bit. We have a little bit of speed, we have a little bit of height, we can do a little storytelling, but we're somewhat limited by this because we have two different characters on how they fly. Mary flies high. She comes in from the ethersphere. Bert, chimney sweep, he's grounded on the streets of London. He doesn't have to fly high. He interacts with everybody. So putting those two things together, we need to, if we're going to do a little bit of height, we're going to use our Bert because you're already on the line. If we could lower this in, we're going to take the swivel out. What happens if we have to make a magic entrance? Skylar, if you could just walk back home, please. Skylar, if we can travel back home to Home Spikes. What happens if we have to make one of those magic entrances? Well, we could make one of those magic entrances, but here's the thing I'll tell you. There's a rule of thumb in theater. There's an old adage that says, if you really want to be amazed at a production, if you really want to be excited about it, don't walk backstage. Every now and then they get to film movies in Ohio. They filmed Avengers up in Cleveland about 10 years ago. And I happened to be involved at a college at the time. And a bunch of the college students got together and they jumped in a car and they ran up to Cleveland and they got to be on the set. And they got to be one of the extras when the Avengers for the Battle of New York, you know, when Captain America's knocking about everybody on the thing, that was filmed in Cleveland. And a couple of them got to do that. And they all came back and they were all excited because they could have been in an Avengers movie. And I think one of them, for 1 second in a fleeting pan, can actually find their shoes in that movie. But they were all excited about it. And then they came back and they said, oh man, we finally got to see how the movie's made. And it's a lot more fun to sit out in the front. So here's what I will tell you. If you want to see a bit of a magic entrance for Mary Poppins, we're going to do it with the curtain up. You can see the operators at work doing this. If you don't, close your eyes. It's okay, right? If something breaks out, if there's a fire, don't worry. We'll open your eyes. We're not going to do any chicanery. We're not going to do any trickery. So if you want to be amazed when you come and see the show, and you don't want to see how the effect is done, this is your chance. You can just politely look away, look down. The people next to you should not poke you and make you open your eyes. If, for some odd reason, a monkey runs across the stage at this point, you're not going to miss it. We will scream, "Open your eyes, there's a monkey running across the stage." It's okay. So, at this point, we are always, as we always do, we're going to talk through it, we're going to walk through it, and we're going to run through it. We're going to talk through what you are going to see. And what you're going to see is our lovely performer here is going to get hauled up to a pretty good height. And by that I mean just so his feet are in view. About 30 feet in the air. Then we're going to start a travel, and we're going to do that same zigzag pattern that we did. It's going to go all the way to this side of the stage, all the way to that side of the stage, and we're going to land him at center, just like we do with Let's Go Fly a Kite. So you can start up, all the way over, back, and down. Nick, along the way, should he be so inclined, if you want to do a backflip, give me one across this way, give me one across this way, and then we'll stick it for the landing. Make sense? Let's try and put this all together. First, we have to prep it. So let's take him up to height, please. While he's going up to height, take a look at the floor in front of him, because on the floor you will notice there is a stack of 400 pounds of steel weight that we are using to anchor against him, just in case. This is a good time to realize that the cables that he's being held on are 3/32 of an inch. That's slightly thicker than a number 2 pencil lead. You good? Each one of them breaks at about 1,000 pounds. He's on 2 of them though, so we have a built-in redundancy. So I could actually go out and take a pair of scissors or shears and cut one of those cables right now, and he wouldn't fall. He wouldn't like it, but he wouldn't fall. He'd just swing sideways by one hip. All right, are you ready? Are you guys ready?
We do this fast or slow?
Dealer's choice. Why don't we do a nice medium speed?
Sure.
At this point, somebody's on stage and they say, "Oh wait, everyone, look!" Hit it. And now, find the glasses. Gonna come back this way. And now we're going to bring him in for a nice landing at center. And I know where he's going to land because of pendulum physics. Nice job. Nice job, everybody. It's amazing what a little bit of time will do. We're here till, correct me if I'm wrong, we're here till 2? Is that what we have for time? Is that correct? Awesome. So let's do this. Why don't we recover our flyer? We're going to recover our flyer. We're going to take a second, and one of the things that I'd like to do at this point is, if anybody has any questions, I think now is a good time to sort of open it up. We can do a little bit of questions to kind of extol what we've just been done, or take a deeper dive into what we've done, or if you want to talk to us about it. But since it's not just me, we're going to bring our fly crew out on stage and our flyers. So if the 2 of you ladies could come on up on stage for us. If you guys want to come out on stage. Does anybody have any questions? I know.
You don't even want to know what my favorite color is or something?
In back. You. Say that again?
Favorite color?
Purple.
That gets a round of applause. These 2 just hoisted a human body. We spent hours doing that. And I get it. It's Barberton. We can't. Sir. It's a good question. You want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Is this on? Hello? Okay.
Does it work? Just project.
I don't know if you ever seen Disney movie called Mary Poppins. Julie Andrews is in it. This is a theater adapted version, of course. But it's basically about two kids who are in a very crazy family that they don't get along. The father is just not really there for his family. And he's more worried about work, and they always have had a nanny. And every time that they have a nanny, the kids kind of drag them off. So they live on Cherry Tree Lane, and Mary Poppins is a nanny that flies in there, and she's magical, and the kids really, the family comes together, and the kids really enjoy her. And yeah, that's who Mary Poppins is.
There's a book that was written back in the 50s. They made a movie about the story of Mary Poppins getting written. It's called Being Mrs. Banks, or Being Mr. Banks. There was a woman named P.L. Travers, who wrote this book, and she was obsessed with this character, Mary Poppins, and she ended up writing quite a few books about it. Walt Disney and the Walt Disney Corporation needed a hit. They needed a movie because Walt Disney, wonderful, genius, creative type, not very good businessman. He kept throwing this into creative stuff, and so they took it, they gambled and they tried to get the rights of this book because they thought this would be a great book that they could sort of put the Disney spin on. And they did it, and it took a bit of a gamble because P.L. Travers was one of the few women in the world who does not like Walt Disney, and she was quite a handful to work with. And so they took a little bit of a gamble on doing this, and the company ended up making quite a bit of money off of it because it has been a hit for about the last 60 years. It went on Broadway in 2005, 2006. They decided that this movie, which was a musical, works really well. That was a big sort of thing. And they turned it in, and they moved it, and about that time it became a hit all over again. And so, a couple of years later, we're doing it here. So that's a little bit about the show as well. Does anybody else have any other questions? Sure. I'll turn it over to you guys. What's your favorite part? The question was, what is your favorite part about doing this play?
Flying.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. This is the only production that I've ever been in that has flown before, and that's not something a lot of people can say they've been a part of, even a lot of people with theater background. But another thing for me personally is the characters. A lot of the characters in the show were like so unique and special, and I know like my character specifically is one that I've kind of always been a fan of and I've wanted to play, so it's kind of a dream come true to be able to do it. And so yeah, I'd say the flight and the characters probably for me.
Bert, hold on a second before you pass that on. Bert is the chimney sweep, but Bert is not just a chimney sweep. Bert is a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
What are some of the trades that Bert has?
Okay, so in the show, well, I'm primarily a chimney sweep. At one point, I'm a painter. I spend a lot of the time just kind of keeping the streets nice and general upkeep of the area.
You have about a dozen of them that are listed, I think, at some point in the show.
Oh yeah.
We see chimney
I'm all
sweep
over the
up.
place doing a lot.
Pretty much. And the advice your father gave you was?
Just learn a trade. So I learned them all.
Exactly. Just make it easy. Learn every one of them. Let me pass it.
My favorite is honestly spending time with friends. Obviously, that's the first. But I'm also a clown. If you know me, that's my personality. And the person I am is not really a clown. So it's fun to be a different person on stage, but then when you walk off, you're yourself again. And honestly, that's my favorite. Well, and also flying. It's kind of fun. It's intimidating, but it's fun.
You don't have to cater to me. That's all right.
No, I'm just...
So we've been wanting to do this show for a very, very, very long time now, and so finally getting the opportunity to do so was really awesome, and I'm glad they did it. Me and Nick are both seniors. I'm glad we were able to be a part of this production for sure. I was probably least excited for the flying because I was very nervous for it, but it's become one of my favorite parts already. We've only been doing it for a day. I just love, if you come see the show, how colorful it is, and the numbers are just amazing. A lot of them classic ones if you've seen the movie before. And I like getting to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
What is that word backwards?
backwards, it's Su Kodalai Exisiliga Felicripis. I say that on the show as well. Now you know.
I don't know if you were asking me or them, but that's for them. What I like about the show, so one of the things I get to do is travel around. I get to pop around and get to sort of be a part of a lot of different productions and a lot of different schools. I range everywhere from, we do a lot of high schools. This is spring, this is High School Musical season. Peter Pan, Mary Poppins, Aladdin, Wizard of Oz. There's about a dozen shows that I have earned quite a few rent payments from, let's be honest, over the years. If you look by head count, who have I flown the most? Which character have I flown the most? How many times in this production have I done, or production of this, or production of that? By far, surprisingly for a lot of you, it's Jesus. Because every Christmas and every Easter, all over, usually south of the Mason-Dixon line, but still, these super churches do the Passion Play, and Jesus goes up. And by far, it's sort of a close second is Peter Pan, and now the last couple of years we've got to do Mary Poppins, and those are the fun ones. I like the fact that with theater you can run away and be something else for a little bit. And you get to be, you sort of get that out of your system, and you get to play. And one of the things that adults don't do is play. Another fun fact for you guys, not much to do with the application of math, but it is the application of art. The older you get, the less you look up. Proven fact. Most of your teachers don't look up. About the time you hit college, after you graduate and you become an adult, you stop looking up. If you look at little kids, little toddlers and everything, they live their world in 3 dimensions. If they see something, a couch, a wall, the edge of the stage, I have a little one, and whenever she sees the edge of the stage, her first instinct is, jump, right? Go! She always has to look around. I think they just kind of don't have a choice, right? They're so much lower than everybody else, you have to look up to see what everybody's face is. Adults don't. You start to look in front of you. When you drive, you look in front of you. When you sit at your desk, you look in front of you. When you work, you tend to work at what's down in front of you. Your world gets smaller in a very literal sense. It gets closed in as you get older. And one of the things that you can do if you want to stay creative, if you want to be an artist, it is look at things from a different perspective. And I mean that in the metaphorical sense, approach a problem from a different perspective, but also from the literal sense. You want to be creative? Look up, look around, look at something that's different. One of the things that we get to do, and I get to do, is sort of see the world in 3 dimensions as much as most people see the world in just 2. They sort of see it as a flat plane in front of them. Anyway, what's your favorite part about all of this?
My favorite part about all of this is actually getting to fly. I like to fly just as much as I like to make people fly. I don't just fly on harnesses. I can also fly on a wrist loop and all kinds of stuff. So I actually like to perform and fly too. So that's kind of my favorite part.
Awesome. I think we got about 2 more, and then we'll have to sort of wrap it up. So if anybody has anything they want to throw out, or any questions you want to ask, now's your chance. And you have to actually sort of throw your hand up and sort of make a little noise. It's okay. We're in performance. You can. All right. Come back. Say again. Where are the kids? My kids right now. She's at school. I hope. 2nd grade. Mrs. Burley's class. If with any luck. If not, then I need to go make a phone call. The kids in Mary Poppins.
There's one right over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Front row.
Jane, and where's? And there's Michael. Jane and Michael Banks. And then there's some other cast members.
Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks is here. Absolutely. All right. Let's do this. Oh, do we have one more? Where? Yeah. Here's the short answer. Yes, but you got to get cast in the play. One of the things that we have to be aware of it's kind of weird. In the internet age, it's easy to share sort of information. And so it's this weird kind of balance we always have to do between putting this stuff out in the world so that everybody can know about it. And I believe, if you can't tell, I believe knowledge is a good thing, right? Share the information. There's an adage that I like to use, which is a rising tide raises all boats. If one of us gets better, it slowly makes the whole herd get better. And what we want to do is make sure that we as a herd get moving as fast as we possibly can, and everybody is contributing. I like that. But the other problem is there's a lot of bad information out, and there's a lot of people who get about just enough, and then they run off and they do idiot choices, right? And they make the internet for all the wrong reasons. So, if you want to come fly for this, if you want to come do this for a living, the answer is I know some people. Make a phone call. Sure, you can grow up and run away and join the circus. And I literally mean run away and join the circus. We had a couple of friends of mine who, they're Russian, and they do an act that is a flying trapeze act. But they decided they were going to do something a little different for it. They weren't going to do flying trapeze. They were going to do throwing trapeze. So what they do is they have about 5 people, and the 5 people that are the team that are throwing are built like a defensive line in football. I mean, I've seen, they look like the Steelers' defensive line. They really are huge. And they grab a couple of people who weigh about 90 pounds, and they get in front of an auditorium about this big, and they start swinging, and eventually they will launch them the length of this, and there's somebody over there that will catch them. And it's very funny because the first time I bumped into the guy who was in charge of this troupe, he's just an average guy, right? He doesn't look particularly big or anything. And he said, oh yeah, and this is my crew that does circus and flying and aerial stuff. These are the dance team, basically. And these guys came walking forward that were huge. And they looked like you'd hit them and you'd walk into a brick wall. So there is a place for you in this world, right? It doesn't have to make sense, but there's a place for you. If you want to run away and do this sort of thing, absolutely, you can. Unfortunately, if you want to do it here, what you got to go see is Mrs. Petrarca, and you got to say, go do a show with more flying. And then you got to audition. And then you got to get cast. So, a little bit of skills. All right. Does anybody have anything else? We got one in blue. You got to step forward and keep walking back. What's that? I'll turn it over to the team.
Supercalifragilistic's my favorite. I just love that song. It's a good one.
Tell them, what is the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Everybody on the count of 3, we say it together. 1, 2, 3.
Very good.
That's exactly right.
So that song is one of the really cool trademarks, like if you think of Mary Poppins, you think of that song, or that word. So she's basically, I don't want to give it like all away. They're trying to come up with different words that you can make by putting random letters together. And Mary Poppins says this word, and everybody's questioning what this crazy word could mean. There's a whole colorful song scene about just that word. And she basically says it can mean exactly what you want it to. You can say it if you're happy, sad, just to express yourself.
And there's a dance number.
And there's a dance number associated with it. It's
How
probably
long
my
did
favorite
it take you to learn the supercalifragilistic?
That was the first song we learned because we were so excited for that one, and that one had to be perfect.
How many weeks have you been working on that?
Since January 1st, we started that song. Going on 3 months.
3 months to learn those 3 minutes on stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've just been working on that one a lot. So that'd be my favorite part of Mary Poppins.
My favorite is Step in Time.